Yo, what's up, Facebook? Hope you are having a great end to your weekend. It is Sunday. That means it's the Sunday sermon with Mike, your mentor. And I'm excited about what I have for you tonight on the next couple of Sundays. I think it's really cool just the way that God works. And you'll see what I mean here as I share this with you. So welcome. Show me a little love. Show me some likes. Maybe share this because it's going to be good. I definitely think that this will be interesting and it will be memorable because I learned this many years ago and it's been on my mind for a long time, and it's cool that now I get to share it with you because I don't think it's a coincidence that things work like this in the world, in nature. I believe that there is a reason to everything. We may not understand that, and that's okay. But yeah, this is cool. So I'm excited to get to this. If you're new to this page, welcome. My name is Mike King, aka Mike the Mentor, and this page is an outlet for me to share the wisdom that I've had sown into me over the last 38 years in order to do two things. One, help men answer the higher calling that we have on our lives as husbands, as fathers, as leaders in our community, and as friends. I mean, the world is crazy, and the reason the world is crazy is because men, not women, men for the most part, have not accepted their responsibility in these areas, in the stewardship that we've been given over these things. For a multitude of reasons that I'm not going to hash out tonight, that you can go back and watch prior videos and I talk about those. But the second reason is that, you know, we've gotten away from learning these things. We've gotten away from what it means to have honor as men. And I want to share that with you because I had to learn these things the hard way. And I would not wish for any of my brothers to learn these lessons the hard way like I did. Going through what I went through growing up without a father, burning lots of bridges, hurting a lot of people, hurting myself, and then having to take that tough look back and deal with those things and confront those things in order to move on to those things and get to the place that I am now and the place that I'm continuing to move into. I'm not better than anybody. But thank God I've had the opportunity to see some of these things and make the choice to deal with them. And that's what I believe it all comes down to. Is every day we have a choice of how we're going to deal with the situations and the things that come our way. Some of those lessons we gotta learn over and over again. Been there, done that too many times. Sometimes, you know, we only got to learn that lesson once. And it's like my college coach always used to tell us, you know, you can either learn things for yourself or you can learn things by watching others and learning from their mistakes. And that's what I want you to do, is learn from me and what I've been through. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I don't look at my relationship pretty much with anybody like that, unless you're my kid. I look at it as like I'm your older brother and I'm sharing this stuff with you because I love you and I care about you, and I want to see you live the best life that you can. We don't have to agree. That's okay. But my wish for you, my prayer for you would be that you would hear what I'm saying and that you would look at it objectively and then take it into your own life and let God speak to you and meditate on that. And then move in the direction that you feel you're called to move with that information. So that's my intro. Let's jump into what we got tonight. We're talking about eagles, right? I never knew these things about eagles and how it pertains to our life as people and what it can teach us about leadership. And it's incredible. So, you know, I could this could probably be talked about for hours, so I want to keep it somewhat brief to keep you guys interested. So we're going to do this over a couple of weeks here. But yeah, I first heard about this in a leadership class that I was at in my church. And this teaching comes from a man named Dr. John Burns, and it just blew me away because it's extremely practical for us as human beings, even when you take out the spiritual component, right? So I want to share some of this stuff with you because I think it will bless your life like it blessed mine and make a big difference. So share my screen here with you guys. Okie dokie, let's roll. Sunday sermon, week 41. Eagle-like leadership. Don't know why that's cut off, but oh well. Shouldn't make a difference. Okay, so I'm going to read this little introduction from these notes that I got. One of the greatest illustrations I know for leadership is eagles. God has planned our lives to stand out and to stand alone, and that is really what eagles do. Eagles embody majestic leadership, strength, and courage. They fly so high, they fly alone, they are majestic. The Bible uses eagles to teach us about how to be Christians, right? So obviously I took this on one of my classes in leadership in church, but stick with me here because these are practical applications for your life regardless of what your beliefs are, regardless if you believe what I believe. So living like an eagle, right? The first thing is getting tired is not a bad thing. You know, we as people, we do a lot of things that are strenuous, right? Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So we are going to get tired and we are going to get weary. And that's why we need to take time to recuperate, to relax, to rejuvenate ourselves. And this is a natural process for us as human beings. You know, cause and effect. Working hard makes us tired. I know this is not groundbreaking. We're getting into the good stuff, laying the foundation here, right? So we get tired physically, we get tired mentally, we get tired emotionally, and we get tired spiritually. And we need to recognize, right, that when we're tired, this is when the devil comes in. This is when the enemy comes in. This is when we entertain those thoughts in our mind that we're not good enough, that we can't do something, that we can't push forward, right? That things will never change. Doesn't happen when we're feeling good. Doesn't happen when we're full of energy. Doesn't happen when we're out there hustling and making moves. Happens to us when we're tired. So we need to renew our strength and we need to rise up like an eagle. You know, and it's interesting that 32 times in the Bible it talks about eagles, and I would just encourage you to look some of that up. You know, do a little Google search, see the way that the Bible talks about eagles, and it's not a coincidence. And that's why we're here and we're talking about how eagles relate to leadership and relate to us as people. Studying eagles shows us how we can renew our strength. So here we go. Eagles embody commitment, right? They're the majestic. They're a sign of majesty and of strength, especially here in America, right? That's our national symbol, our national bird, if you will. But strength without commitment doesn't make a difference. And it's crazy just how committed eagles are. And it's commitment that changes the world. If we want to make a difference, whether that in our world, whether that's in our family, whether that's in our community of friends, whether that's on a grander scale, if we're fortunate enough, right, nationwide, some of us maybe even worldwide, that's not going to happen without commitment. And we need to understand that. What are you committed to? What am I committed to? You know, in the last couple of years, but really this last year with doing this, right? Being committed to this, being committed to showing up every day and doing something to make a difference in men's lives. It's a huge commitment. It's a huge sacrifice of time, of resources, but it's worth it, right? Because of the feedback that I get, and even if it was just one person, the difference that you can make in someone's life by just showing up and being committed. Quick story, right? Growing up, there was a show. It was called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and Mr. Rogers was a kid's show. He would start the show off by the door, like it'd be a camera view, and it'd be showing at a front door, right, from the inside of this house. And the door would open, and Mr. Rogers would walk in. And I want to say he would say, like, how are you today? Or it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Maybe a combination of those, right? But he would walk in, and then he would proceed to take his jacket off. And he would hang his jacket up. And then I believe he would take his shoes off, and then place his shoes off to the side. And then he would do some other things. Every single show, without failure. And when the show was over, someone asked him, why was your show like that? Because this show ran for years upon years. Why did you do that? And he said, a lot of the kids that watch my show don't know what commitment looks like. They don't have someone in their family who can show them consistency and commitment. So my way of doing that and helping them is by doing the same thing every show, right? He was modeling that for them. And I thought that was extremely profound, right? To do that for his audience. It's incredible display of commitment. And I'm sure you can think of incredible displays of commitment, because they're all around us, right? Sports, outside of sports. You know, when we as humans put our minds to something, the things that we are able to do and accomplish are just incredible. And all of those things are world changing. I don't care if they're on a world type level or if they're on a one-to-one, intimate, personal type of level. If you're a good friend and you're committed to showing up and being there for your friends, you are changing the world. That is a commitment. So make a decision and stick with it. You know, in Eagles, they're not just committed short term, they're committed to the generations. And here's how. Check this out. Strength in our lives is seen through our courage to do things, our courage to take up commitments and to keep them. One more quick story, right? So my grandpa was a builder. And in the city that we built, he built a lot of the homes in a lot of different neighborhoods. But his building career started off by him buying a plot of land around this small lake. And he went to the bank, and him and his partner, it was an interesting relationship, right? My grandpa's partner was the brains. He was the guy who was in the office all day taking care of the books and stuff. And then my grandpa was pretty much the workhorse. He was out in the field doing the work, building the houses, all of that. But he went into the bank, and on a handshake, right? You never hear of this today. On a handshake, he borrowed $1 million for them to buy this plot of land and start to develop it. Now, it was like a week before that money was due, and my grandpa and his partner were nervous as all get out, you know, and they were praying that God would make a way for them to be able to pay back this money, because if they didn't, they were out of business, right? And this was their first venture. So 2 days before the money was due, they hadn't sold any of the plots. Now, this is at a time, I want to say like in the late 60s, early 70s, that this was taking place. And at that time, the community that we lived in was extremely segregated, like majority white. I think it was 100% white. Yeah, it must have been because of this story that my grandpa shared with me. And he had the first black family to the city come to him. They had just moved into town and wanted to buy a plot for my grandpa to build a house, right? So my grandpa was taking a huge risk at that time and leap of faith in selling these people a plot. But he believed that God was telling him to do it, so he went ahead and he sold this plot of land and built this house for this black family. And once he did that, within 2 days, all the remaining plots sold, and they had the $1 million to bring back to the bank and honor that commitment that they had. Incredible, right? So here's how eagles are committed, not only to their lifetime, but to the generations. Once an eagle finds a mate, it mates with that one eagle for life. And it's an incredible process. Female eagles, on average, are 1/3 larger than the males, right? So more physically dominating. And they're extremely picky and selective. So guys, if you think that us as humans and what we have to go through to find the love of our life is challenging, check this out. So eagles do what's called a stick test. And what these female eagles do is they make themselves available for any male to court them. But in order, or as part of the courting process, they do the stick test. And what they do is first they start with a little stick, and they fly up in the air, and then they drop that stick. And then the male that's presently trying to court them will come in and grab that stick. So there's 4 stages. If he passes the first stage and he grabs the little stick, the female eagle will then go and get a stick that's double that size. And then she'll fly higher than she flew the first time, and she'll drop the stick to see if that suitor is committed to picking up the stick. If he is, and he grabs the stick, it moves on to the 3rd phase. If he does not follow her up there and or does not catch the stick when she drops it, he's out. You're gone. See you later. No second chances. And they've observed this in nature, right? This is fact. No second chances. You're done. One and done, buddy. On to the next. So then the 3rd phase is they find even a bigger stick, right? And eagles are extremely strong. So the 3rd phase, they find the bigger stick, they fly up even higher, drop that. Okay, dude, are you committed? You gonna grab this stick? Let's find out what you got. Okay, he grabs the stick, he goes on to the 4th and final stage. And on the 4th and final stage, this female eagle is literally going out and grabbing a log-sized stick and is flying almost as high as they can in the sky. And we'll get to this in the coming weeks, but some eagles can fly up to 2 miles high. 2 miles! So they will drag this log up in the air, incredible heights, and then she'll drop it. Okay, you want me? You want to be my mate? You're going to catch that stick. It might kill you. Possibly could. But are you willing, are you that committed in pursuing me, in pursuing this relationship, to risk your life to catch that stick? And the eagle that catches the stick, right, in that 4th phase, that's the one that the female will mate with for life. Will never again look for another mate unless that first mate dies. Incredible, right? So I don't know your situation. I don't know if you're married and you're watching this. I don't know if you're single and you're watching this. But what does that say to you about commitment? What are you going to be satisfied with? What are you going to sacrifice for? What are you going to settle for? See, that was my story for a long time. Settling. And not having any idea of what I wanted, and just saying to myself, I'll figure it out in the moment. And I just want to attest to you that that is not a good way to approach things. You want to be crystal clear in what you want. And not only that, what you will and you won't tolerate, especially when it comes to a relationship. That doesn't mean that there's not give and take, but I would argue that that's more needed once you've already made the commitment. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Okay. Right, so there's got to be a reason why a female eagle will do this test beyond just finding the one mate that she's going to stick with. And this is incredible, right? Because eagles do not switch mates. I'll say that again. They do not switch mates unless that first mate dies. So why? Well, the obvious reason is so they can build a family. Well, duh, right? They need to find this other mate that they can then mate with and then have a family. But it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Just because someone is good to you doesn't mean they are good for you. That right there is fire. Just because someone is good to you doesn't mean they are good for you. What does that got to do with eagles? And what does that have to do with the female putting the male through this test? Right? Because if you're the male eagle and you've made it through stage 3, okay, you're showing that female eagle that you're willing to be good to her. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that you're good for her. You going to risk your life? You going to catch the log in stage 4? Right? In practical terms, are you pursuing someone in your life? Are you out there? Are you just settling for whoever pays you the littlest bit of attention without testing them, without proving them, without making them show that they're committed, that they've earned the right for you, that they're going to honor you? Or are you just like, okay, dude, come on over. Here you go. You can have all of me. What's your worth? What's your worth? What's your worth as a man? What's your worth as a lady? You set that. You determine that. Back to the eagles. I told you there was a point why they do this. Why would you need to catch those sticks? And why would the female care so much about it? Here's why. Those eagles are going to build a nest, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then they're going to have babies. And then those babies are going to need to leave the nest and learn how to fly. And when it comes time for them to learn how to fly, some of those eagles ain't going to fly. They're going to fall. Fall fast and fall hard. And guess whose responsibility it is to catch those babies? That's right. It is the male's responsibility. And that is why the stick test is so important. Because that female needs security. I think we talked about security and the importance of that to females in a Man Up Friday session or two. And here it is playing out in nature that the female needs security from the male, knowing that he is committed and that he is capable enough so that when they create a family, he will take care of the family in the way that he is supposed to. And in this instance, by catching the babies as they fall, if they fall from learning to fly. It's incredible. I mean, incredible. So, part 2 of eagles embodying commitment. I said we talk about the nest, right? When eagles go to build a nest, they don't just build a nest that's going to last a year, going to last a little while so that they have to do it again. No. They build the nest with the mindset that this nest is going to last for generations. That's crazy. For generations, right? Eagles are committed to the long term. They're committed to not only themselves, to their babies, to their babies' babies, to the babies' babies' babies. Check this out. An eagle's nest can weigh up to 2 tons. Small car, anyone? It can be 20 feet deep. That's crazy. 20 feet. You could literally stand. I'm 6'2". You could stand up in. You could put Shaq in that thing. You could put Yao Ming, 7'6", whatever tall Yao Ming is, up, and he could reach his hands up, and he wouldn't come up out of that nest. His hands would not reach over the top, right? And then this thing is 7 to 8 feet wide. So I could lay down in it with my hands by my side and still have roughly, I don't know, foot and a half before my head hit one end. I mean, that is a massive bed. That is a massive nest, right? And this thing, that's why this thing is going to last generations. And to build something like this takes a lot of hard work. What hard work are we willing to put in? Not only for ourselves, not only for our families, but we're talking legacy here, man. For our grandkids, for our great-grandkids. For those members of our family 3 or 4 generations down the line that will remember what we did for our family tree, for the tone that we set, right? And for many of you guys watching that are in my situation, right, you came from a broken family. You came from a family that didn't have a good example in the house of what a man should look like. And this is your opportunity to change that legacy. I get the fortunate chance of doing that for 2 families. My family, and then I got my son, who's not my son by blood. But that's how important this is, right? He ain't never known his dad. I barely knew my dad. And I get the opportunity to change that for myself and for him. How awesome is that? How incredible is that? How much responsibility is that? That's commitment. That takes hard work, right? And this is what I'm talking about. So, what are you doing? What are you working on that will last in your family? When you die, and if they're doing it the same way when we die, and your loved ones are in the funeral home, and it's the private visitation, and they're in the back room with your body in that casket, with no one else around, what are they going to say about you? How are they going to remember you? Are they going to say you were selfish and you only cared about yourself? You couldn't be counted on. You didn't follow through with your word. You had so much potential, didn't do anything with it. Or are they going to be like, there's never going to be another person like him? And look at the legacy they left. Look at the change they made. This is what you're called to. This is your purpose. You and only you can do that. Only you can accomplish that. Only you can fulfill that. And I'm not telling you that to make you scared. I'm not telling you this to overwhelm you. I'm telling you this to encourage you because it's awesome. And it gives you permission to chase after it, to find it, to discover it. And then to do what's necessary to fulfill it. An eagle can carry up to twice its weight. You got to be committed to pick up something that's twice your weight. An eagle is not afraid to do the work or build the house that will last for generations. You know, and eagles never stop building their nest. Right? It's made of sticks, branches, I don't know, probably some other stuff. It's out in the wild, so it is, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, it's affected by the weather. There's going to be wear and tear. You're going to have to replace sticks. You're going to have to fix things. Right? But it never stops. It never stops. What we're doing as men, what we're called to, it doesn't stop. I'm sorry. I mean, some days I wish that it was easier. Some days I wish that it did stop. Like that there was this finish point. You know what the finish point is? It's when you're dead. We need to be willing and ready to continually build both our house and God's house. Always going back. Always being committed. I mean, I think about my marriage, right? Been married 12 years. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be married today. You know, if you've been on this channel or this page, you know that story, right? Lied to my wife before we were married. Lied to her when we were married, after we were married. Then she finds out some of the truth, and I almost blow my marriage up. And here I go. Now I got to prove myself. Now I got to prove that I'm committed. And boy, did I get tested. You know what it's like to come home and have the person that you love have all their bags packed in the middle of the living room and say, I'm leaving because I can't do this anymore because you've hurt them so bad? I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And I ain't talking about just once. I'm talking about time after 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 time. And thank God it's gotten so much better. But that wouldn't happen without any type of commitment, without any type of hard work. And once again, I'm not better than anybody else. I'm just making a choice. A choice. What am I going to do? Every day when I wake up, what am I going to do? What am I going to do in this circumstance? What am I going to do in this situation? We all got choices. You know, the funny thing is about commitment, right? And having a family is parenting is not over when children get married and move out. This is one of the things, you know, I talked about learning vicariously, right? I haven't experienced this yet. Could be in the next couple of years, you know, son's 18, graduate from high school, go on out into the real world. But does it stop? No, right? Our jobs as parents, like, never stops. You know, hopefully when your kids leave the home, you're at a position where it's not necessarily a parent type of relationship. Maybe it's more of like almost like a friend type of relationship. And I guess I'll be able to talk more about that when I go through it. But some of the relationships that I observe between parents and of my friends and the circles that I hang out in, you know, that's what it's like. It's almost like a friendship. You know, there's still that little bit of parenting. There's still that advice, you know, that they're going to their parents for. There's still that active role that their parents are taking in their lives. But the job is never over. It's never over. It just changes. You know, and I think that all this shows us, right, like the eagles, us as humans, like God is focused on the generation. He isn't just focused on the generations. He isn't just focused on us in the here and now. He's focused on what's coming after us. What's going to be left over after we're gone? Ask yourself that. What's it going to look like? You know, my dad died. I don't know if I talked about this part before, but you know, oldest son, right? So at the funeral, man, was this after the funeral or before the funeral? I don't know. At some point in the funeral, the funeral director pulls me aside and takes me into this room and sits me down. And sits my uncle down, my dad's brother, and takes out this plastic box. I actually got it right here next to my desk, but I'm not gonna dig it out. And he slides it across the table to me and says, "Okay, here's what your dad left you." Okay, open it up. It's got like a wallet in there. There's like a Blockbuster card, if you remember Blockbuster. It's got like a picture. There's a card in there from somebody. I'd have to look. Like 2 watches. These aren't like Rolex or anything. These are like you know, Walmart watches, I guess, or you know, a watch that you buy at like a flea market. I don't know, just, you know, nothing special. Nothing of monetary value, I guess, is of great monetary value, of decent monetary value. Yeah. And that's it. And he says to me, your dad had a small life insurance policy for a couple $100. And then he pulls out a piece of paper and he slaps it on there, you know, drops it on the desk, and then he slides it over to me and says, we need to discuss how this is going to get paid. And it's the bill for the funeral and the burial, minus the couple $100 that my dad had in life insurance. And I look at the guy and I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, but one, this was unexpected. Dad just showed up in my life a couple weeks ago, and two, I'm in college. I don't have any money to pay for this. And thank God my uncle was there, and he looked at me and he grabbed the piece of paper and said, "Hey, you don't worry about this. I'll take care of it." He told me to leave the room. But I tell you that story, right, because it's like, God bless my dad, but he didn't leave us jack. He left us owing more when he was gone than when he was alive. What's going to be left over when you're gone? So don't be a short-term thinker. Think long-term. I think there's some saying like, shoot for the stars and you'll land on the moon. It all goes back to that purpose, right? You have a purpose. Shoot for it. Go for it. It's a long-term commitment. Sometimes that's scary. I mean, it's scary for me to think about. But it's also a little bit exciting. Yeah. So that's it for this week, the Sunday sermon. Hope you enjoyed that. We're going to get into some more regarding Eagles and what they represent in terms of leadership and what they show us in terms of our lives. And we're just beginning. I mean, eagles are incredible creatures. Incredible. And I just hope that this stuff is making a difference in your life, giving you something to really think about and reflect on, right? One, because I got you. Two, because I love you. And three, because I know what it's like to want someone to speak into your life, to encourage you. There's enough BS on the TV and outside of the door and everywhere we freaking turn these days. Yeah. Alright, well, hope you have a good Sunday night, wherever you're at in the world. If you need me, you know how to get a hold of me. Shoot me a DM. And we'll see you tomorrow for My Life Monday. Thank you. Good night.